All right. Hello, everybody. I hope you guys are doing well today. This is the NBA Tournament Strategy Show, where we do a quick look back at yesterday, see how that slate went, what went well, what didn't go as well, etc. And then we'll look at this slate. We'll go game by game, talk about guys that we like, guys we want to do a little bit more research on. And then on the pre-lock show, which will be at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time, we will talk through the implementation of what we will be doing on the slate, leverage plays, guys that we're capping exposure to, things of that sort. You can only watch the pre-lock show by clicking the link in the description to become a VIP member. Feel free to use the promo code BOB for a 10% discount if you want to. Up to you, Let's look at yesterday's slate. This was the $100,000 winning lineup for yesterday. And it was a pretty interesting one. We have Tyus Jones. He made sense with Bane being out. Jalen Green, he was on the radar. He was in some lines, but honestly, not a guy I was super high on. Jason Tatum went off in the matchup against Dallas. We talked about the forwards for the Celtics yesterday on the pre-lock show. I had a 10% exposure minimum on him, so not leverage, but at least we had some decent exposure. Jaren Jackson Jr. was a core play for me, so that went well. Some of the other ones did not. I had a good amount of exposure to Doncic. He sucked yesterday. Steven Adams, I was trying to keep riding that train. That didn't go well. But believe it or not, I still had a profitable day, and mostly because of core plays like Jaren Jackson Jr. and leverage plays like marketing really helped somehow keep me afloat. Shungen was also in this lineup. He made a lot of sense. Connolly was viable on this slate with Sexton out. Gordon was a leverage play, so he made a good chunk of sense. Kinkar, I didn't get on. There were so many freaking weird blowouts yesterday. I'm not going to complain too much about it, but random crap kept happening. We were like, oh yeah, this is going to look good. And no, it did not. But still a solid day. We've been on a pretty solid streak. I like to smell the roses and enjoy the positive train while it's going, because just as easy as you're on a little bit of a hot streak, a cold streak comes next. So I try to not get too high or low too often. Dave's, what's up, man? He said, I'm on LeBron and Porzingis on FanDuel today. All right. I get it. I do. I don't think I disagree with you too much, to be honest. Always good to see you in here, Dave. Cedric, my guy, sup. I had too much Luka and not enough marketing. Good call, though. Yeah, I mean, they kind of balance each other out for me. Slightly profitable. Didn't make a ton of money or anything like that. But Luka definitely hurt a lot. And Thomas Dye, always good to see you in here too, man. Awesome. All right, guys. Who cares about yesterday? Let's look at today's slate. We have a freaking gigantic one. You guys know, and sorry, I was wrong earlier. The pre-lock show will be at 4 p.m. It's Friday. On Fridays, they're insane for me. We have the 4 p.m. pre-lock show, and then we have Tournament Tactics at 5 p.m. Tournament Tactics is the 5 p.m. NFL show. We have some GOATs on there, so highly recommend watching that. We were on Tom Brady and guys like that last Sunday, so definitely worth a watch if you have some time. But back to this. So starting off, we have the Portland Trail Blazers against the Indiana Pacers. For me, the Trailblazers have quite a few important questionable tags, but the good news is that this game is right at lock, so we should have enough information to make some decisions here. We have Jerami Grant, questionable. Nurkic is probable. Gary Payton II is questionable. Winslow's been out. Nasir Little's been out. If Grant is out, that is huge for this team. Usage increases for the usual, like Lillard, Simons, Hart, Nurkic. Everyone on this team sees a usage increase with Grant being out. So I already have some slight interest in Damian Lillard. I like the matchup against the Pacers, but if Grant's out, then Damian Lillard is pretty much a lock-in for me as a leverage play, depending on his ownership. On a slate this size, he probably still shouldn't be too popular, so I would still like to get some leverage on him if Grant is out. We've been playing bigs against the Pacers, so I'm totally fine with Nurkic here if he plays. Of course, if Nurkic ends up not playing for whatever reason, Eubanks is the guy after that. Outside of that, I don't think I have too much interest in these Trailblazers. For me, it's really just the injury news that I'm waiting on. On the other side of this game, we have the Pacers. They are basically healthy. Daniel Tease is out, and that's about it. You can take shots here with guys like Tyrese Halliburton. He hasn't really been having his ceiling performances that he was having earlier this season, and so his price tag is slowly but surely starting to fall. If this game goes back and forth, I would definitely want to have a good bit of exposure to Damian Lillard and Tyrese Halliburton. But for me, I'm really just waiting to see if Grant plays or not, because that's just is really going to be what determines my interest in this game. Miles Turner, I'm a homer for, always slightly interesting. He's on my radar. I need to dig a little bit deeper and research to see how well I like the matchup. But he's always just someone that I want to keep an eye on, especially if he ends up being low owned. Sneaky upside guy. That's kind of what I have him labeled as in my head. Next up, we have the Bulls against the 76ers. The Bulls have Alex Caruso listed as questionable, Javonte Green listed as questionable. Nothing else really matters too much there. For the Sixers, the one and only Joel Embiid is out. Massive news. I know James Harden disappointed last time out. He didn't really have that huge game that we were kind of betting on. I'm more than happy to go and find going right back to the 76ers here. James Harden has a 33.7% usage rate when Embiid is out. You can also take shots on guys like Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris. They will more than likely go overlooked in a spot like this. For me, if Alex Caruso ends up being out, I'm more excited about attacking with like guys like Harden, Maxey, just because the matchup will be a little bit easier with elite defender like Caruso not playing. Alternatively, we can't forget about Harrell. Apparently, we can't forget about Harrell. PJ Tucker starts, but Harrell saw 28 minutes last time out. Thomas, I didn't play Reed last time, so I'm not really planning on playing him this time. But if he starts, I would consider it. But assuming he doesn't, I'm not really there for it. Michael said, "Hi Josiah, I hope to win some money." I hope so too, man. I hope so too. JJ said, FanDuel made my decision easy to not play. The reserve entry function isn't currently active. Oh, that's weird. Yeah, I don't play on FanDuel very often, so I don't know about those issues, but hopefully they fix it here soon. But yeah, Harrell saw 28 minutes, which is relatively rare for him. He doesn't typically go past like 22-ish minutes, and so Harrell can be a very efficient player. He had some decent chemistry with James Harden, which was nice to see. I think he's definitely viable, but I'm not like excited to play him. The Bulls haven't been rebounding well this season, so that makes me slightly more interested in playing a big here. On the other side of this game, we got the Vucevic call right last time around. My problem with Vucevic is that when I start getting him right, I start getting more excited to play him more often. This spot feels like it makes sense because it's a better matchup than it looks like on paper with Embiid out. This matchup is much softer for him. Harrell's not a great defender. Reed's not a great defender. They don't really have anyone that should be able to stop him. But with that being said, the Bulls do have a lot of ways that they can score with DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine. So that makes him still not as exciting of a play as he could be. Dave said it's back working. So nice. Hopefully that's the case. All right. Next up, we have the Knicks against the Raptors. The Knicks, RJ Barrett's out. That's important. He's been out for a little bit here. The Raptors are pretty much healthy. Otto Porter is the only guy out for them. Pascal Siakam has been crushing it. He crushed the Knicks last time he played them, but historically he doesn't have the best reputation against the Knicks. The Knicks haven't been as strong defensively so far this season in the front court, so I'm fine taking shots on Pascal Siakam, but if he's too popular here, not my favorite spot. Julius Randle feels really expensive at $10,600. RJ Barrett being out does give him a usage boost. Similar story with Brunson. They're definitely still viable, but it's hard for me to want to get too excited about forcing exposure to them, facing a relatively decent defense in the Raptors. They're definitely still in solid spots. We know Quickly has upside. His price tag is still making me feel a little bit uneasy, but with Barrett out, he should start. And like I said, the upside is there. Just the price tag is making me not super excited, to be honest with you guys. Brunson is, of course, viable at 7,900 with RJ Barrett out. Totally fine going right back to him. I don't know. I think he worked out for us last time. I don't remember. It doesn't really matter. Um, Still a good spot for him. He's still a little bit too cheap in my mind for the upside he brings to the table, but we'll see where we end up. The slate is gigantic, so there's going to be a lot of guys who are in decent spots that we might have to miss. Again, Julius Randle, I know I said he's really expensive for me, but he's definitely still viable on this slate. Ideally, the domination station will give me some natural exposure to him, but not too much, so I won't have to worry about it or overthink that situation. On the other side of it, Fred VanVleet has I've seen some interviews where he's been slightly mentioning that his role has changed a lot on this team. He's more of the off-ball shooter now, less control. He's in less control of the offense like he was last season. So he's just adjusting to this new role. He's still viable at 7,400. His shot just has to fall these days since the peripheral stats aren't there as much as they were last year. But honestly, he's always kind of been that kind of guy for me. Streaky shooter. Elite, though. Elite for sure. Next up, we have the Nets against the Pelicans. The Nets have TJ Warren questionable. That's important because TJ Warren's been playing some hefty minutes for them. And so if Warren's out, that makes some of the other role players for the Nets more viable. The problem with the Nets, though, is that they have a ton of viable role players. So I would honestly kind of prefer TJ Warren plays just so I don't have to worry about it too much. On the other side of the game, the Pelicans have Larry Nance Jr. questionable, Willie Hernan Gomez questionable. I call him Willie G. Zion Williamson is out. Brandon Ingram is out. So for the other side of this, for me, I'm open to playing Joe Val, believe it or not, if Larry Nance Jr. is out. I think we've been on the Joe Val train for a while. I don't think we were on him as much the last time he broke the slate. But with Larry Nance Jr. out and Zion Williamson out, is always a better spot for him. The Nets have been better defensively against bigs over the last few weeks, but over the last two games, they've struggled against Mason Plumlee and Nikola Vucevic. We were on the Nikola Vucevic play, not really Mason Plumlee, but they do still allow some big performances to bigs. So I'm not really afraid to attack Joe Val here. With that being said, the Nets defense has improved as a whole, and so that makes this a slightly tougher matchup for CJ McCollum. I know CJ McCollum didn't have like the explosive game we were expecting him to have last time out, but I'm more than happy to go right back to him here. Trey Murphy's price looks like it went down a little bit. I'm okay with that. I am more than happy taking some shots on Trey Murphy III here. I think he's a little bit underpriced, and if his ownership is low, I like the spot. And I think that's pretty much everyone for me in that game. All right. Next up, we have the Washington Wizards against the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Wizards, it looks like Gafford is healthy, so nothing to worry about there. Taj Gibson, questionable per usual. Bradley Beal is out. That's a big deal. The Oklahoma City Thunder, they have Jalen Williams out, Eugene Amori out, Poku is out, Dieng's out. These guys have been out for a while, so no major surprises here. For me, with the Wizards being out, with the Wizards having Beal out, that automatically increases my interest in guys like Porzingis and Kuzma. They're more viable on this slate than they were previously. Then we have the tougher thing that we have to figure out is playing the role players from the Wizards that like to go off when Bradley Beal is out. That list includes Monty Morris, Rory Hachimura, Denny Avdija, and Will Barton. All four are viable, but I wouldn't have all four in a line. If I'm getting a lot of exposure to these guys, which I don't really foresee happening, but if I do, then I would create a rule where only one of the four are allowed in a line together. Maybe two at the most. Just because this is a really bad or a really good matchup against the Thunder. They are a really bad defensive team, so it wouldn't shock me if multiple guys from this team can kind of get there. So, interesting spot for sure for me. I think that's everything for them. On the OKC side, Their front court is honestly kind of like the Magic yesterday. I said on the pre-lock show, I was just like, I don't like Magic players too much. If I can avoid playing them, I will. And for me, the only guys that you can really look to attack here are the front court guys. Just because of the injuries to like Williamson, Poku, like you can definitely take some shots on guys like Kenrich Williams and Basley and Muscala, but I hate those plays. So I'll probably just let the domination station decide for me. And if I get too much, I'll cap my exposure to them. Just because the coach gets so wild with their minutes. You can always take shots on guys like SGA and Giddey, but I prefer Giddey in spots like short slates and when SGA's out. So for me, if I'm taking a shot from this team, is going to be SGA, but as of right now, he's not looking like a leverage play or anything like that for me. But he's on the radar. I just don't. I'm not excited about it as of right now. Next up, we have the Charlotte Hornets against the Bucks. The issue about this game is that the spot looks fantastic for all of the Bucks. All of the Bucks look really good here, but it's just the Hornets have been getting blown out a lot, and so it's just like how much tolerance or risk are you willing to take on these guys when this game could very easily blow out? For me, it's going to be an ownership thing. If no one's playing Giannis against a really bad Hornets team, then I'll make him a leverage play and I'll have exposure to him. But if he's popular, I'll more than likely be under. Thomas said Will Barton, I can't get right. Yeah, I haven't really played Will Barton a ton this year, so I haven't been on his like big explosive games, and I haven't really been on board when he's bombed either. I've been more so willing to take shots on Rory Hachimura, and that's probably, if I'm taking a shot on those guys, that's probably the way I would go. Kaboom said, Wagwan Army, let's get this money. Let's do it. I never just know if I'm saying that right or not, but I like it. Ricky said SGA has been underwhelming recently. Agreed. I know he was out for a little bit. Just not my favorite spot for him, but if he's extremely low owned and I see something in the matchups that I didn't see right away, then I might be more willing to do it. But as of right now, I'm not excited about it. The Bucks have Giannis listed as probable. Jrue Holiday is listed as probable. Joe Ingles was not on the injury report. George Hill, probable. Beauchamp, probable. And then Chris Middleton is out. None of the injury news really matters at all for the Bucks. For me, it's bigs against the Hornets. Brook Lopez has been really good so far over the last few weeks, so he's viable. Giannis is viable. But for me, Brook Lopez more often than not will be a leverage play for me here. I am assuming he probably won't have too much ownership, so he's almost a guaranteed leverage play for me. But Giannis only if he's low owned. If I do end up going that route with Giannis, it's more likely that I'll increase my exposure to LaMelo Ball. He's below 10K, which is nice, but that's also a little bit of a question mark. Just more so of an interesting spot for me, not one that I'm sure I want to chase too much. With Gordon Hayward listed as doubtful for the Hornets, that makes, and Kelly Oubre's also out. That makes guys like Terry Rozier more interesting. We've been playing a lot of Jalen McDaniels, and that's been going well. PJ Washington's even slightly more viable here. I don't love the matchup, but slightly more interesting. For me, it's more so likely that I'll have some like Terry Rozier and Jalen McDaniels exposure, though. Jabari said I'm stacking Detroit, San Antonio. I get it. That's the next game up. Shar said, if you have any eyes, you should know not to play Will Barton at all and not try to get him right as we speak. LOL. I see you. Kaboom said, yeah, you said it right, my guy. All right, good. I'll try to remember that. I most definitely won't, though. It's going to be hit or miss every day. It's going to be bad. Conscious said, good day. Oh, yeah, good day. All right, Pistons and Spurs. Interesting game. Two god-awful defenses. I feel like I say this a lot, but when two bad teams play each other, you get some really interesting scenarios. Like, sometimes these games break the slate because you're playing some ugly names and really plus spots. Other times, these games can just get really gross and one team blows out the other. I mean, granted, you can say this about any NBA game, but it happens more often with these really bad teams, in my opinion. But I always like chasing upside, so if they're low owned, then I'll attack it. Marvin Bagley out, Isaiah Livers out, Cade Cunningham is out. For the Spurs, we have Josh Richardson listed as questionable. Keita Bates-Diop is listed as probable, and then Blake Wesley is out. The biggest thing here for the Spurs is that Vassell is out. He has a nice usage rate, and he sees decent minutes for the Spurs, for those that don't know. The guys who see the biggest increase in regards to usage with Vassell out are Johnson and Bates-Diop. Langford also saw an increase in minutes last time out as well. So with this just being a really soft matchup at 6,800, I like this spot for Keldon Johnson. He has a lot of upside as long as his minutes are there. Really nice price tag in my opinion. You can also take shots on Jakob Poeltl here. He's never like the fun, exciting play, but he's just typically priced decently, where I'm open to taking some like GPP shots on a guy like that. Yeah, like I mentioned, Keldon Johnson's 31.5% usage rate with Vassell out is always interesting to me. Killian Hayes worked out last time. I told everyone who's watching the pre-lock show, I was like, or maybe it was Keegan Murray. It was one of them. But I was like, hey, I like playing this guy. I think it's an interesting spot for him. Potential nice leverage play, but I'm not going to do it because I always get him wrong. Killian Hayes, Keegan Murray, same story works out for both of them. I think this is a potential sneaky spot for him. A spot I want to dig a little bit deeper into as the day progresses, but keep him on your radar. Yeah, honestly, guys, this game isn't as exciting for me. I understand why some people might want to stack it with guys like Bay and Stewart, but not my favorite spot on the slate in general. But I do think there's some sneaky pieces we can get here. Next up, we have the Cleveland Cavaliers. Jabari said, Will Barton question mark? Nah, bro. There needs to be a few injuries for him to be relevant. Guys, when did I say I was playing Will Barton? I did not. I don't know what you guys are hearing. Kaboom said Sadiq Bey's game winner was a hold my beer moment. Definitely. Yes, it was. And Sadiq Bey's been playing more solid minutes too, so nice for sure. Ricky said, gotta play some Bojan. Yeah, I mean, he has a ton of upside as well. Definitely a lot of pieces we can have, but not a team I want to force a ton of exposure to. But no issues of you guys doing that. Next up, we have the Nuggets against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Let's see. Injury news galore. That does matter a lot. It is a little worrisome that this game is later on the slate. But we have Donovan Mitchell out. And then we have Darius Garland listed as questionable. So they might be reversing roles here a little bit. Dean Wade's out. Windler's out. Rubio, that doesn't matter. The biggest thing here is that if Darius Garland plays, he sees a 3% increase in usage with Mitchell off the floor. So fantastic spot for Garland. We like playing guards against the Nuggets anyway. We've been doing it all season long. And so would freaking love this spot for Garland. LeVert would more than likely still start with Garland playing in this scenario, with Mitchell out. And so he would definitely still be viable as well. I know he burned us like 2 slates ago, and then the last slate he was on, he performed pretty well. So LeVert's definitely viable here. It gets really wild. What gets like the real heart pumping nerves going for me a little bit is like if Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland end up missing this game. Jared Allen would then lead the team in usage rate, which scares the absolute hell out of me facing off against Jokic, potential foul trouble, but still like a fantastic spot for him at only 6,300. And then we have Kevin Love with a 26.3% usage rate. Evan Mobley would also round out like in that third spot and leading the team in usage. It would be a wild slate. That would really switch things up, and I would be here for it, honestly. I think there would be a lot of risk involved because of the foul trouble concerns I do have. The matchup isn't great for these front court guys, but I would still chase it. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, so I think that's how I would handle the Cavaliers. For the Nuggets, I'm not as interested in them as of right now. Jamal Murray typically hasn't been playing a ton on back-to-backs. They didn't play a lot last night because of the blowout. So he said yesterday in interviews that he will play today, but we've seen players say stuff like that before and they still don't. So be careful with that. If Jamal Murray ends up not playing for whatever reason, I would have a lot more interest in Jokic, Gordon, and Michael Porter Jr. Michael Porter Jr. at 5,900 is already a little cheap for me. If this ownership is right, that leads me towards not making him a leverage play. But if he's lower owned than that, very interesting spot for sure. I don't like playing Jokic when everyone else is healthy. I'd rather take a shot with Murray, Gordon, or Porter. But if I do get some exposure to Jokic naturally, that's totally fine too. Next up we have the Clippers against the Timberwolves. Let's see. Any interesting injury news here? For the Clippers, we have Kawhi Leonard listed as TBD. John Wall is listed as TBD. I think the vast majority of us in the industry are assuming that Paul George and Kawhi Leonard will play, since they didn't play almost at all yesterday due to another blowout. The one thing I will say, though, is just because that makes total sense that they will play today, the Clippers consistently do random bullcrap when it comes to rotations and minutes. So I wouldn't get too comfortable with this because things could get a little wild towards the end of this slate. So keep an eye on it. The Timberwolves, we have Naz Reid listed as questionable. We have Forbes listed as questionable. Cat's still out. McLaughlin's still out. Nothing too crazy here. I think the biggest thing is that Gobert has been in much better form as of late, and Edwards has also been looking pretty good. Edwards' price tag is coming down a little bit at 9,100. I think he's a little bit more viable than he was at 9,600. So he's on my radar a little bit. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are just priced well on this slate, so that's what keeps them viable. I'm still personally a little bit nervous around one of them being out, so I want to keep an eye on that. The matchup against the Clippers is a tough one. They're a solid defense, and so the Timberwolves aren't going to pop for us too much. But if I'm taking a shot, I'm okay taking shots on Anthony Edwards and Rudy Gobert here, barring any other random injury news. Zubac didn't come through for us yesterday, but I think he's viable here again on this slate at 5,000. So I don't want to forget about him on this slate either. All right. I think that's everything. 2 more games, guys. 2 more games. We have the Phoenix Suns up against the Miami Heat coming up next. For the Heat, we have Caleb Martin listed as questionable. Dwayne Dedmon, probable. Haslam, questionable. Robinson, out. Jovic, out. Yurtseven, out. Typical long list for the Heat. None of that really matters too much. I mean, Martin does matter, but we'll see. For the Suns, Cam Payne's out, Devin Booker's out, Cam Johnson's out. So those guys have been out for a good chunk of change here. I mean, I think the saddest part is that the Suns have been so bad as of late. Offensively, they just really haven't been able to produce. And now they have a tough matchup against against the Miami Heat. It's hard for me to want to force exposure to this game because it just feels like a slow pace game with not a lot of offense, a lot of guys missing shots. It just seems very ugly. But I do think Butler could be viable here. Jimmy Butler, he typically goes under-owned, and he does typically perform up to his matchup. Similar story of Chris Paul. I'm not trying to force Chris Paul exposure. He hasn't looked good, but he also does typically rise to the occasion of his competition, so slightly more viable than he usually would be. I have some interest in Miles Bridges too, believe it or not, just at 6K, solid minutes, some upside, interesting play. But for the most part, I don't love this game. It's pretty ugly, pretty gross. Shaman should start here at 4,500. Could potentially be interesting, but I don't love the matchup. I think there will be better value later on in this slate. And then we have the last game, guys. The last game of the slate. We have the Atlanta Hawks with only Clint Capella out. And then we have the Lakers with LeBron James listed as probable, Russell Westbrook, probable, Lonnie Walker's out. Austin Reeves is out. Troy Brown Jr. is questionable. Damian Jones is questionable. Max Christie is available. And AD is out. Man, the Lakers are missing so many people. So many people. The Lakers rotation can get wild sometimes with just like, who is that guy? I didn't even know this guy played basketball. If Troy Brown Jr. ends up being out, that's probably the news that I'm looking at the most for this team. That's a boost to LeBron James, who's already in a great spot facing a not great Hawks defense. So I already like LeBron James a lot, like a lot of people will be. He won't be a sneaky play. You could see some weirdo guys like Max Christie and Juan Toscano Anderson also see a few more minutes here and at 3K. That does make them viable, believe it or not. So that Troy Brown Jr. news does matter a good bit for me. Alternatively, Schroeder has been in fantastic form. If Juan and Christie aren't the route that the coach decides to go, then I think Schroeder is definitely a likely player who could see a nice ceiling performance in a spot against a bad Hawks front backcourt. So definitely viable for me. And then Wenyen Gabriel, 3,300, just like his price tag, he'll be in some lines for me today as well. Michael said, as always, thanks for your advice. Appreciate you, man. We're not done yet. There's still a little bit of time, but thank you. For the Hawks, like I said, Clint Capella's out. We've been playing John Collins, and no one else is playing him. Like, no one else plays John Collins. I mean, he had a bad game last Friday, but every other game he's been smashing for us. I remember one slate, I think maybe it was Monday. I created a rule where John Collins and Okongwu couldn't be in the same lineup because before that slate, they didn't go off together, and creating that rule almost stopped me from taking down the contest. So not going to do that again, even though I still don't like playing them together. Assuming John Collins will be low owned once again, I'm more than happy to attack with him. Similar story with Okongwu. The scary part is that this Lakers team is, like I said, god awful, and they can be attacked everywhere. So for me personally, I like playing John Collins. Like, he's the guy I want probably the most exposure to. I like playing bigs against the Lakers, just a thing for me. And then I definitely want LeBron James like on the other side of a lot of those lineups. I'm not going to force the rule. It should happen naturally because LeBron James should be pretty popular, but we'll make sure that's filtered out the right way on the pre-luck show. Kaboom said Collins smash night again. I hope so, man. I hope so. It's been working pretty well for us, and no one else is doing it. If he ends up being super popular, I probably won't be on it as much. But if the trend keeps going, I'm going to stick with it. Dave said Weekend Gabriel has done me good the couple of times I played him. Yeah, me too. Like, he's not a guy that I tend to think about too much, but he's just kind of been in some of my lines that have been performing well. So with AD and crew out, he's definitely more viable. So guys, yeah, that's this freaking gigantic slate that we just ran through. I look forward to seeing you guys on the pre-lock show. Like I said, that will be at 4 p.m. today. So I'll make sure to put that link in the Discord, and I'll see everyone then. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Rest up a little bit. It's going to be wild. Let's crush it. Peace out. Bye.